Hello viewers, I Swayamprabha welcomes you to the episode on price and output under monopoly. In this chapter, we'll discuss the meaning of monopoly, its necessary conditions, nature of demand and marginal revenue curves, price and output under monopoly, monopoly equilibrium, long-run equilibrium and multi-plan monopoly. Monopoly is an extreme form of imperfect competition with a single seller of a product which has no close substitutes. So before proceeding further, we'll first acquaint ourselves with the terms which are going to be used in the discussion. Meaning of monopoly. The word monopoly means alone to sell. Thus, monopoly is a situation in which there is a single seller of a product which has no close substitutes. Pure monopoly is never found in practice. It is the other extreme form of market structure. In the real world, public utilities such as Delhi Vidyut Board supplying electricity to the city of Delhi, Mahanagar Telephone Nigam Limited (MTNL) providing telephone services to the residents of Delhi are some of examples of monopoly. Though they are regulated by the government, until recently, before the private buses were allowed to operate, Delhi Transport Corporation, that is DTC, had also a monopoly of bus transport in Delhi. Apart from these public utilities which are regulated by the government, very few pure monopolies exist in the real world. Condition necessary for the existence of monopoly. For the monopoly to exist, three conditions are necessary. There is a single producer or seller of a product. Second, there are no close substitutes for the product. Third, strong barriers to the entry into the industry exist. The nature of demand and marginal revenue curves under monopoly. It is important to understand the nature of the demand curve. It is important to understand the nature of the demand curve facing a monopolist. The demand curve facing an individual firm under the perfect competition is a horizontal straight line, but the demand curve facing the whole industry under perfect competition is sloping downward. This is so because the demand is of the consumers and the demand curve of the consumers for a product usually slopes downward. The downward sloping demand curve of the consumer faces the whole competitive industry. But an individual firm under perfect competition does not face a downward sloping demand curve. This is because an individual firm under perfect competition, one among numerous firms constituting the industry, so that it cannot affect the price by varying its individual level of output. But in the case of monopoly, one firm constitutes the whole industry. Therefore, the entire demand of the consumer for a product faces the monopolist. Since the demand curve of the consumer for a product slopes downwards, the monopolist faces a downward sloping demand curve. A perfectly competitive firm merely adjusts the quantity of output it has to produce, price being a given and a constant datum for it. But the monopolistic face a more complicated problem. He cannot merely adjust quantity at a given price. Each quantity changed by him will bring about a change in the price at which the product can be sold. Consider figure 1.1. DD is a demand curve facing a monopolist. At price OP, the quantity demanded is OM. Therefore, he would be able to sell OM quantity at price OP. If he wants to sell a greater quantity ON, then he will have to lower the price to OL. If he restricts his quantity to OG, price will rise to OH. Thus, the problem faced by a monopolist is to choose a price quantity combination which is optimum for him, that is, which yields him maximum possible profits. Now, in figure 1.2, AR is the average revenue curve of the monopolist and slopes downward. MR is the marginal revenue curve and lies below AR curve. At quantity OM, average revenue or price is OP or MK and marginal revenue is MQ and marginal revenue is MQ, which is less than average revenue OP or MK. We have explained that average and the marginal revenue at a quantity are related with each other through price elasticity of demand. Why under monopoly marginal revenue is less than a price or average revenue can be easily proved. Consider figure 1.3 where D dash is a demand curve or average curve of the monopolist. At price OP of the product, the quantity OQ is demanded. Now, if the monopolist sells more than this, say OQ dash, price falls to OP dash. It should be noted that not only the additional unit OQ dash will be sold at a lower price OP dash, but all the previous units OQ will now be sold at a lower price OP dash. Thus, by selling 1 unit more, QQ dash or delta Q is equal to 1 of the product, and with the reduction in price to OP dash, the monopolist gain in revenue is equal to the shaded area QT SQ dash. Since the previous units OQ are now sold at a lower price OP dash, the loss in revenue on these units is equal to the shaded area PKTP dash. Therefore, to find out marginal, which is the net addition to the total revenue by selling 1 more unit of output, we have to subtract the lost in revenue PKTP dash incurred on the previous unit from the gain in revenue OTSQ dash by selling an additional unit of output. Thus, marginal revenue is less than the average revenue or price at which the additional unit is sold. So, price output under monopoly. In monopolistically competitive markets, since the product is differentiated between firms, each firm does not face a perfectly elastic demand for its product. Each firm is a price maker and is in a position to determine price of its own product. As such, the firm is faced with a downward sloping demand curve for its product. Generally, the less differentiated the product is from its competitors, the more elastic this curve will be. The conditions for the equilibrium of an individual firm. The conditions for price output determination and equilibrium of an individual firm may be stated as follows. First, MC equals to MR. Second, MC curve must cut MR curve from below. Figure 1.4 shows that MC cuts MR curve at E. At E, the equilibrium price is OP and the equilibrium output is OQ. Since per unit cost is BQ, per unit supernormal profit, that is price cost, is AB or PC, and total supernormal profit is APCB. Now, we will see monopoly equilibrium and price elasticity of demand. Another important feature of monopoly equilibrium is that the monopolist will never be in equilibrium at a point on the demand curve or average revenue curve at which price elasticity of demand is less than 1. In other words, the monopolist will never fix his level of output at which price elasticity of the demand on the average revenue curve is less than 1, provided the marginal cost is positive, which the case is most usually. Since marginal cost can never be negative, equality of marginal revenue and marginal cost cannot be achieved where price elasticity of demand is less than 1 and marginal revenue is therefore negative. We know from the relationship between price elasticity and marginal revenue that whenever elasticity is less than 1, marginal revenue is negative. Therefore, no sensible monopolist will produce on that portion of the demand or average revenue curve which gives him negative marginal revenue, that is, which reduces his total revenue, while the production of additional units adds to the total cost. That the equilibrium of the monopolist will never be in equilibrium at the level of output at which the elasticity of demand curve or average revenue curve is less than 1 is illustrated in figure 1.5. It will be seen from figure 1.5 upper panel that up to ON level of output, MR is positive and total revenue is increasing as up to this output level. Price elasticity of demand or average revenue curve is greater than 1. We know that at the middle point R of the straight line demand or AR curve, price elasticity is equal to 1, and corresponding to this unit elasticity point, marginal revenue is equal to 0. Below the middle point R on the average revenue curve, elasticity is less than 1 and marginal revenue is negative. The equilibrium of the monopolist will never lie below the middle point of the average revenue curve AR, as over its range, marginal revenue becomes negative and total revenue TR decreases, as is evident from the following TR curves beyond ON output in the lower part of the figure. Thus, given that MC is positive, equilibrium of monopolist cannot lie below the middle point of the average revenue curve where price elasticity is less than 1. It will always lie above the middle point of the average revenue curve where price elasticity is greater than 1. The precise point on which equilibrium point lies depend, as already explained, upon the position of marginal cost curve and its intersection point with the marginal revenue curve. If marginal cost MC is 0, the monopolist will be in equilibrium at ON level of output, at which marginal revenue MR is 0. Now let's see the next one, that is long run equilibrium under monopoly. In the long run, monopolist would make adjustment in the size of his plant. The long run average cost curve and its corresponding long run marginal cost curve portray the alternative plants, that is various plant sizes from which the firm has to choose for operation in the long run. The monopolist would choose that plant size which is most appropriate for a particular level of demand. In the short run, the monopolist adjusts the level of output while working with a given existing plant. His profit maximizing output in the shorter run will be where only the short run marginal cost curve, that is marginal cost curve with the existing plant, is equal to the marginal revenue. But in the long run, he can further increase his profit by adjusting the size of the plant. So, in the long run, he will be in equilibrium at the level of output where given marginal revenue curve cuts the long run marginal cost curve. Fixing output level at which marginal revenue is equal to long run marginal cost shows that the size of the plant has also been adjusted. That is, a plant size has been chosen which is most optimal for a given demand for the product. It should be carefully noted that in the long run, marginal revenue is also equal to short run marginal cost. But this short run marginal cost is of the plant which has been selected in the long run, keeping in view the given demand for the product. Thus, while in the short run marginal revenue is equal only to the short run marginal cost of given existing plant, in the long run marginal revenue is equal to the long run marginal cost as well as to the short run marginal cost of that plant which is appropriate for a given demand for the product in the long run. In long run equilibrium, therefore, both the long run marginal cost curve and short run marginal cost curve of the relevant plant intersect the marginal revenue curve at the same point. Further, it is important to note that in the long run, the firm will operate at a point on the long run average cost curve LAC at which the short run average cost is tangent to it. This is because it is only at such tangency point that short run marginal cost SMC of a plant equals the long run marginal cost LMC. The figure 1.6 portrays the Longrun equilibrium of the monopolist. He is in equilibrium at OL, output at which long run marginal curve LMC intersects marginal revenue curve MR. Given the level of demands as indicated by positions of AR and MR curves, he would choose the plant size whose short run average and marginal cost curves are SAC and SMC. He'll be charging price equals to LQ or OP and will be making profits equal to the area of rectangle THQP. It is therefore follows that for the monopolist to maximize profits in the long run, the following conditions must be fulfilled. That is, MR equals to LMC equals to SMC, SAC equals to LAC, and P is greater than or equal to LAC. The last condition implies that in long run monopoly equilibrium, price of the product should be either greater than long run average cost or at least equal to it. The price cannot fall below long run average cost because in the long run, the monopolist will quit the industry if it is not even able to make normal profit. Let's take the next topic, that is monopoly equilibrium and perfectly competitive equilibrium compared. The equilibrium under monopoly, it is now in the fitness of things to make a comparative study of the two. Only similarity between the two is that a firm under both perfect competition and monopoly is in equilibrium at the level of output at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. First, monopolist fixes price at a higher level than marginal cost. A significant difference between the two is that while under perfect competition, price equals marginal cost at the equilibrium output, under monopoly equilibrium, price is greater than marginal cost. Why? Now, under perfect competition, average revenue curve is a horizontal straight line, and therefore marginal revenue curves coincides with the average revenue curve, and as a result, marginal revenue and average revenue are equal to each other at all levels of output. Therefore, at the equilibrium output, under perfect competition, marginal not only equals marginal revenue but also average revenue, that is the price. On the other hand, average revenue curve facing a monopolistic firm slopes downward and marginal revenue curve therefore lies below it. Consequently, under monopoly, average revenue or price is greater than marginal revenue at all levels of output. Hence, at the equilibrium output of the monopolist, where marginal cost equals marginal cost, marginal revenue, price stands higher than marginal cost. Thus, under perfectly competitive equilibrium, price is equal to MR equals to MC. In monopoly equilibrium, price is greater than MC. Second, monopolist makes supernormal profits even in the long run. The second important difference between the two is that while the perfectly competitive firm in the long run is able to make only normal profits, a monopolist can make supernormal profits even in the long run. Under perfect competition, if firms in the short run are making profits above normal, the new firms will enter the industry to compete away the profits. But under monopoly, the firm continues earning supernormal profits even in the long run, since there are strong barriers to the entry of new firms in the monopolistic industry. It should not be understood from this that monopoly always guarantees supernormal profits. When demand is low and costs are relatively higher, the monopolist too would suffer losses, though only in the short run. These short run losses are not due to competition from any new firm, but due to low demand and high cost. The point is, if the short run is making profits above normal, they cannot be eliminated by the entry of new firms in the long run, with the result that these supernormal profits will persist even in the long run, provided that the demand and the cost situation do not change unfavorably. Third, Price is higher and output smaller under monopoly. Another important difference between monopoly equilibrium and perfectly competitive equilibrium is that under monopoly, price is higher and output smaller than under perfect competition, assuming cost conditions in the two cases to be the same. Suppose a number of firms are producing homogeneous products and pure of perfect competition exists among them so that no one can individually affect the price. Price and output will be determined at the level where demand and supply curves intersect each other. Suppose that all the firms constituting the competitive industry combine together so as to form a monopoly. Fourth, monopolists can discriminate prices. The fourth difference between monopoly and perfect competition is that while a monopolist can discriminate prices for his product, a firm working under perfect competition cannot. The monopolist will be increasing his total profits by discriminating prices if he finds that elasticities of demand at the single monopoly price are different in different markets. But it is not possible for a firm under perfect competition to charge different prices from different buyers. This is because a seller under perfect competition faces a perfectly elastic demand curve at the level of going market price. Therefore, if he tries to charge a bit higher price than the going market price from some buyers, they will turn to other sellers and purchases the same product at the going market price. Fifth point. Long run equilibrium under monopoly is usually at the less than optimum size. There is a last significant difference between the two is that perfectly competitive firm is in long run equilibrium at the minimum point of the long run average cost curve, whereas monopolistic firm is generally in equilibrium at the level of output where long run average cost is still declining and has not yet reached its minimum point. In other words, perfectly competitive firms tends to be optimum size in the long run, whereas monopolistic firm stops short of the optimum size. This is so because it pays a competitive firm to expand production so long as average cost is falling, since average revenue and marginal revenue remain constant, but it does not pay a monopolistic firm to expand production to the minimum point of the average cost curve because it is often not worthwhile for it to do so. Now let's come to the next topic, that is multi-plant monopoly. Price and output determination in our analysis, we considered the case of single plant monopoly. A monopolist was producing a product by operating a single plant. Now we will analyze the determination of price and output of a monopolist who is producing an identical product in different plant. For the sake of simplicity, we assume the monopolist operates two plants. It is further assumed that the cost structure of the two plants is different. In order to achieve his goal of profit maximization, Howe has to take the following two decisions. First, how much total output he should produce and what price he should fix for his product. Second, how to allocate the total profit maximizing output between the two plants for producing the products. That is, of the total output, how much he should produce with plant A and how much with plant B. So finally, we have learned today the chapter of price and output under monopoly. In the script, we have discussed its meaning, its necessary conditions, nature of demand and marginal revenue curves, price and output under monopoly, monopoly equilibrium, long run equilibrium and multi-plant monopoly. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. We are ending here the chapter of price and output under monopoly, and we'll see you again discussing about our next topic or more wide variety. Have a nice time. Thank you and bye.